Girls, today we'll continue the writing, literary analysis. Okay. 1 minute to share the presentation. So, can you see it, girls?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Literary analysis. So, we start. Okay, girls. Previous time we said that this term will take a literary analysis. What is literary analysis? To analyze, okay, a piece of literature or as a literature selection, like a poem or a short story, big novel, fiction, non-fiction. And he helped you and he said to you there are literary elements that you analyze. Okay, the literary elements that I analyze, like what? Like plot, like point of view. So we say that the author preferred to use the first person point of view, okay, in order to make the reader, not you, of course, because we do not talk to the reader, in order to make the reader, okay, or to get the reader to know the protagonist of the story more, because in the first person point of view, the narrator only knows about the feelings and emotions and thoughts of the protagonist only, of one person only, okay. So maybe he prefers to use the third point of view in order to be aware of all the characters in the story. So it's up to the point of view. So number one, the plot. The plot was interesting. It was written in a suspenseful way. It grabbed your attention through the whole story. Then the point of view, then the setting. So the author succeeded in using the setting to create the dark mood, because the setting was in this dark palace in an isolated island, okay, at night. So because as we said, when I want to write a horror movie, I write it not in the middle of the day. I write it in a hidden place, in a dark mood. Or even if you are watching a movie, you will see that the brightness of the screen of the movie is not as the brightness in any other movie. You can judge the movie by its brightness. So you can say it's action, it's horror, it's a romantic comedy, for example. So the setting, the characters. So the characters are, maybe you only talk about the characters in your literary analysis. So I just want to know how the author created the characters and how characters were credible, yani you believe them. How the author could bring those characters alive, like Harry Potter, for example. Okay, although that it is fantasy, kind of fantasy, never happens in real life, but he brought the characters alive. So you got to know each character, how he thinks, how he acts. Okay, so was the character flat? Was it round? Was it static? Was it dynamic? Then you can say, no, teacher, I want to talk about how the author used imagery to draw the picture. What is so an author has succeeded to draw a picture, to smell the food he describes, to feel the feelings of the protagonist or of the antagonist. Okay, so just as we said, the auditory, the olfactory, the gustatory, the visual. Okay, here gustatory, olfactory, auditory, visual, organic feelings, kinesthetic movement. Or we can only talk about symbolism. Symbolism, maybe there is a symbolism in the story, so I talk about it, that the author has succeeded in using this to symbolize and tell the bigger meaning. Or we can talk about irony. Irony in the story, we have three kinds of irony, as we said, dramatic, situational, and verbal. Or foreshadowing. He used foreshadowing to create suspense, like when we read in Mr. Tanimoto. Or, okay, so here we stopped at foreshadowing, right? We stopped at foreshadowing. When we were solving the second read of Hiroshima, he asked me to say, what did he use? Remember yesterday when we were answering, what did the author use in his writing Hiroshima? And we said he used alliteration, he used opposites, he used repetition, right or not, girls? Remember, or you do not remember?
Yes.
So these are what? These are literary elements. These are ways the author use to write, to create his writing, to make it effective, to make it different from any other author. Okay, so this is how we analyze. These are the ideas on which to write. Okay, so Ahad, read Ahad the slide. Ahad,
Yes, Miss.
read please.
Writing a literary analysis essay requires a writer to follow a proper process. The process includes planning as well as writing. If the planning of the essay is done correctly, the writing process gets easier and more effective. To write your literary analysis essay successfully, follow the steps provided below.
Yes, so you have to plan. Plan is to think, okay, before you start writing. Thank you, Ahad. Wad, read ya Wad. Number one is to read thoroughly. I read thoroughly. Like yesterday when we were solving Hiroshima, he asked me to go back and read it. Remember, when there is a question, I ask you to go back and reread in order to get what you want, in order to get the repetition, in order to get the ascendaton. What?
The first step in the writing process of literally analyze easy is thoroughly read the chosen text. It is important to analyze and understand every little detail of the original text to eventually draft your literary essay. Carefully read and understand the author's view and message he and she is providing through writing. A simple trick to analyze the text is to answer the question provided below. Which
Yes,
part of
in order to understand the text, ask yourself these questions, and from these questions, you can get to what to analyze. First question you want?
Which part of the content are substantial? Which literary devices are used by the author? Why the author chose those literary devices? How the character develop in the content? Identify every detail, including the ideas, plot, character, settings, and analyze them eventually.
Attentively. Okay, we have two ways, whether we want to write to talk only about one, so the whole essay will be about using imagery, and then I give examples of the imagery, or I talk about more than one thing. So I can say imagery, I can say ascendaton, and I can say repetition, and in each body I go support one of them because I write it in the thesis statement and then I support. That's what we will take now. So what will I want to talk about? Which part of the content are substantial? Which literary device was used by the author? He used foreshadowing, he used symbolism, he used irony, he used so I decide, like yesterday, he used repetition. John Hersey used repetition. John Hersey or Steinbeck? Steinbeck, because John Hersey is for grade 10. Steinbeck, he wrote, he used repetition, he used opposites, he used ascendaton, he used alliteration, yes. So these are the four literary devices he used. Okay, why did he use them? The effect. Remember the effect? What is the effect of using this literary device? Okay, so, and then how the characters develop in the content. How maybe he was a protagonist, he was a good person. At the end of the story, he turned to take his revenge and he went to jail, so he became a criminal, or maybe. So is it around is it a dynamic, or it is static? It didn't do anything, just like the sister of the protagonist, she doesn't do anything. Okay, so you identify each detail, you look at the plot, you look at the characters, you look at the setting. Okay, then Aya Banjak, read please. Aya?
Yes, miss. Sorry.
Yes, read please this slide, DA.
Okay. Choose a topic. Once you have understood the text, come up with a topic for your literary analysis essay. Make sure to choose an interesting essay title to grab the reader's interest in your work. Choosing a literary analysis essay's topic can be tricky business, but a good topic will ensure strong essay content.
So after I decide what will I talk, don't forget to create a title. Don't forget to create a title. So now I decided I will talk about the symbolism or the irony or the imagery. Okay? Okay. So Leah, read ya Leah. Leah? Leah?
Yes, miss, I'm sorry.
Read Leah, it's okay. Read.
What, miss? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Read the slide.
Yeah, sure. The next step is to form a thesis statement. A thesis statement is the writer's stance on the chosen piece of work. After reading the entire content thoroughly, the writer will be clear about his/her claim on the text. Forming a strong thesis statement is important as it shapes the entire essay.
So I've decided I will talk about using imagery and opposites in Hiroshima. So June Hersey, or I say it, I form my thesis statement. Now I'm forming my thesis statement. The author has succeeded in using what did I say? Imagery. What did I say? No, imagery and what did I say? I choose two things. What were they? Imagery and what? And opposites. Okay, imagery and opposites to emphasize the meaning, to emphasize the theme, to emphasize the message of Hiroshima. And that's it. This is my thesis statement. I will mention the two things I will discuss, or three things I will discuss, or one thing I will discuss, one literary device, or two or three. Okay? Thesis statement is very important. You set it at the beginning because this determines what are you going to talk about. Then we go to form a literary analysis essay outline. Outline, introduction, like any normal essay. Introduction, 3 bodies, conclusion. Introduction, 3 bodies, conclusion. Okay? Okay. Are you with me?
Yes.
ملك الحاج read يا ملك.
Yes, miss.
Yes, read the slide.
Structure in literature works is fundamental. One should devote enough time to create the essay structure outline. Drafting drafting an essay outline plays an important role in deciding the paper's success. General and literary analysis essay outline contains the following elements: information, body paragraphs, introduction, body paragraphs, and conclusion.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Noor, how can I, okay, afternoon. How can I write the introduction, ya Noor?
Should I read?
Yes, please.
This section introduces the topic to the reader by including interesting information to catch their attention. Writing a good essay introduction is essential when drafting a strong essay. Arrange your data in this section so that a reader explicitly gets an idea about the original work and your stance over it. This is done by presenting back knowledge information on the text. In the end, close your introduction paragraphs with a CSS statement that you developed earlier.
So girls, here is how I write the introduction. As any normal essay, what is the first thing I do into the introduction? I
write a hook.
Yes, write a hook. Grab attention. It can be a quote of the story. It can be a fact about the explosion of the nuclear bomb. Because with grade 10, we took Hiroshima. So that's why I repeated Hiroshima, because I mix between You took grapes of wrath. That's why I. So grab attention is to grab the reader's attention. A quote of maybe I can say, I will take it for 20, I will work for 15, I will work for 10, I will work for food. So I can start with this to show how hunger exceeds the word. Okay, so I grab the attention. Okay, and then I have in the introduction to mention two things. You never forget them: the author's name and the title of the novel or poem, if you are analyzing a poem. So the author's name and the novel's title. Okay, author's name is what Steinbeck. What Steinbeck? What's his name? Grade 11.
Josh
Steinbeck. Huh?
His name is Josh.
Josh Steinbeck?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
No, John.
John or Josh?
John.
Okay.
بس it doesn't
John,
matter. Steinbeck يعني. Steinbeck خلاص.
Steinbeck. Okay. What an author's name Steinbeck and novel's title is Grapes of Wrath. Okay, so I can start with what I will work for 20. Of course, don't forget the quotation marks. I'll work for 20, I'll work for 15, I'll work for 10, I will work for food. Okay, this is how hunger. Why teacher you talk about hunger here? Because I have to give a background on the literary work in my introduction. So this is how hunger drove people crazy to get out of their homes, dreaming to find jobs anywhere else. In Grapes of Wrath, so here I mentioned the title of the work. In Grapes of Wrath, written by Steinbeck. And I can mention when, for example, 1948. This I grabbed the attention. I mentioned author's name. I mentioned the poem, the novel's title. I mentioned the background. The last thing is what thesis statement. How I formed the thesis statement, form it directly. The author used repetition and opposites to intensify the theme. And you can mention the theme that people could be inhumane to each other in difficult times. That's it. I finished it. How I form it? If you think of each one that I mentioned this, I mentioned the poem's title, the novel's title, I mentioned the background. So my introduction will be like 5 or 6, 7 lines and perfect lines. So I finish introduction. What do I do now? Each one I mentioned, I have to support it in my body. So I mentioned what? I mentioned opposites. So I go to the book, I open the book, and I find the opposites. Here he mentioned opposites when he said wages went down, prices went up. This is how I start my body. Steinbeck used the opposites, and I mentioned the opposites between two commas. Wages went down, why prices went up? To intensify the meaning or to intensify the theme. When people or business owners started to hire the workers for lower price, and sell their products in an inexpensive price or in a high price. He used the opposites because opposites emphasize each other. When I say something expensive, something cheap, they intensify each other. Okay? Then I move to the second body. What is the second body? What is the second thought? Yes.
What do you write in the thesis statement?
I wrote repetition and I wrote opposites.
In the same things you're gonna write in the bodies, of course, huh?
Yes, I will give details. support what I say. Why you say he used the repetition here? Come, I will show you. He used the repetition in this part and in this part, in this part. So I'm not analyzing what happens in the story. No. I'm analyzing the way the author tells us what happens in the story. I analyze his way. I'm not analyzing the events. I'm not saying that people should give each other help and people should be humane in the time of crisis. No, don't analyze what happens inside the story. I analyze how the story is given or delivered to me. Okay? Okay. Here the body paragraphs. Tia, read Tia.
Yes, Minister. After writing an introduction, move to the body section to present ideas, statements, and explanations to support your claim. In the body paragraphs of a literary analysis essay, a writer takes references from the text to support his argument. This can be done using the quoting as well as paraphrasing method depending on the writer's choice. Writing the body of your essay includes a topic sentence, sub-arguments, and supporting evidence. All of the arguments in the body paragraphs should collectively back the main argument of the essay.
Yes, so that should support what I wrote in the thesis statement, okay? Are you with me? Who said I want to read a few minutes ago?
Me.
Nirvana? Okay,
Yeah.
read Nirvana. Conclusion. What after I supported the thesis statement with 3 bodies and I said everything I want to say, what would I write in the conclusion? Sorry, in the conclusion.
Shall I read it?
Yes.
Okay, it is the last and most important part of the essay. It presents the way your literary work reflects the plotline and ideas of the author. It is important to keep in mind the length when writing a conclusion of your essay. The conclusion sums up the discussion, making the audience clear about the chosen text and the reasons behind the writer's stance. When moving from your outline to writing, focus on all the features of the literary work you will analyze. This might be difficult for you, so take the expert's assistance. To make sure that the writing process is effective, seek help from an essay writing service. Following is an example provided by our experts to help you draft an outline effectively.
Maybe I don't want to talk about the imagery. Maybe I want to discuss how he delivered the theme. So this is also good. So I say that what did he use to deliver the theme? He mentioned the hard conditions, so I tell them in the part. He mentioned opportunists, those who take advantages in the hard people. So in the first part, for example, I mentioned that he mentioned the Dust Bowl, he mentioned the Great Depression. In the second paragraph, I say that he mentioned that the opportunists like the bankers and shop owners start to take advantage of other people. So here I am analyzing how he gave me the theme. Okay, so now after I wrote the thesis statement, after I supported in the 3 bodies, I go to the conclusion, and he says to you, be aware of the length of the conclusion. It should be with the same length of the introduction, not longer than introduction. Okay, why? Because in conclusion you sum up what you've written. You sum it up in a different way. Okay, now you start writing. Now I will start writing. So Layal, also now you're not here. Okay, Sham Hassan. Sham.
Yes, can I read?
Okay, Maya, read. Sham, you replied me?
Yeah.
Okay, so Maya will read and then Sham, you are next slide.
Okay.
Maya?
Once you have planned out the entire essay and have a concrete outline to follow, start writing it. A literary analysis essay.
Analysis, yeah, Maya, analysis.
Okay. Analysis essay is started by writing a hook statement that is a part of the introductory paragraph.
So a hook, we mentioned the hook, a grab the reader's eyes.
This is a catchy opening statement that grabs the reader's attention and motivates them to read the essay. Present the background and brief information about the plot, ideas, and purpose of the original text. Following this comes a thesis statement. This is presented at the end of the introduction section. In the body paragraphs of a literary analysis essay, a writer takes reference from the text to support his argument. This can be done using the quoting and paraphrasing method, depending on the writer's choice. Writing the body of your essay includes a topic sentence, sub-arguments, and supporting evidence. All of the arguments in the body paragraphs should collectively back the main idea of the essay. For the conclusion of the literary analysis essay, restate the thesis statement and provide a summary of the main ideas to prove your point. It is important to keep in mind that the conclusion's length should not exceed the introduction's length.
Okay, so here he says to you in the introduction, what do? I'm writing now. Okay, so a catchy opening statement that grabs the reader's attention. Then present the background, brief information about the plot, ideas, and purpose of the original text. Following this, then comes the statement, of course. So grab the titles and author's name, the background and then the author's and title's name as you want to present it, and then the thesis statement, then the body paragraphs, the 3 body paragraphs. You give reference to the text. You go to the text and you get reference of the text to write them in the 3 bodies. Then write your body of your essay, okay, including a topic sentence. Yani each one has a topic sentence for, so if in the thesis statement I mentioned imagery, so in the body I will start, he used the auditory imagery in this, and I start mention. So this body, I know that it will include the auditory imagery. And then the second body, he will talk about olfactory imagery. The third body, you will talk about the kinesthetic movement, the kinesthetic imagery. So I know for each body, it has a main topic, the topic sentence that it tells me what is the paragraph about. Yes. At the end, conclusion. Okay, Sham?
Yes, I read this on the screen.
Yes.
After finishing the writing process, revise and proofread the essay to ensure that the work is free from errors. Check for mistakes and fix them right away before submitting your assignment. Ensure that the language, tone, syntax, vocabulary, punctuation, grammar, and structure complement the content.
I have to revise the language, the tone, the syntax, how I put the grammatical structure of sentences, vocabulary, punctuation, grammar, structure, all of them, to revise them. Continue, Sham.
Choosing a topic is important to draft a good literary essay. Following are some topic examples that you can use for your literary essay. Analyze the main character of a book. Analyze the main plot of a novel. The significance and analysis of a particular piece of literature.
So maybe you analyze the characters. Maybe you analyze the plot. Maybe you analyze one device. Okay, thank you, Sham. This is literary essay rubric, and this we will discuss next time. Okay, because this is how I want you to know how we check your writing. Okay, how can we analyze your writing? How can we give you a mark? Okay, so this we will discuss next time. But did you understand, girls, what are we going to write about in the literary analysis essay?
Yes.
Do you have any questions about literary analysis essay?
No.
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it? I will show you a small video and then we continue. Wait a minute.
welcome back to my channel. My name is Carly Stevens and this is English Nerd. So today I wanted to give you some hacks basically about literary analysis. Now those words, literary analysis, can freak some people out, so it doesn't need to be frightening at all. And there's some really simple things that you can do to be effective at literary analysis and getting to the whatever's beneath the surface of the story. So for the example today, that's a little bright and hard to see. There we go. I'm going to use 1984. It's a really common book to study in high school and college.
Girls, 1984 for George Orwell. Did we discuss it this year? I discussed it with you or with the grade 10? 1984.
No, we didn't discuss it.
George Orwell and the Animal Farm.
No.
Okay, I sent you the Animal Farm before vacation on WhatsApp. I told you try to read it. It's so easy. And 1984 is also great novel. Yani those two novels are great. Animal Farm is so easy, girls. I sent it to you PDF. Download it and read it, please. You'll enjoy it.
And it's just really good in general. If you have not read 1984, you should by all means check it out. So the main thing I'm going to be talking about today is analyzing the beginning. If you want to get at the heart of a book that's well written, you want to look closely, very closely at the beginning and the end. Very often the beginning will encapsulate some of the themes or the tone or sometimes the characters' personalities. There is so much packed into that beginning besides just having an interesting hook. Once again, I'm sorry about the lights. They seem to be, the weather's doing something funky. Anyway, let's take a look at the beginning of 1984 and I'll show you how you can do some literary analysis even on your own if you're not an English teacher or some kind of expert. 1984 by George Orwell begins this way, very famously. It was a bright, cold day in April and the clocks were striking 13. Now, you don't need to be any sort of English whiz to realize that there's something off about having the clock strike 13. The key to good literary analysis is just observation. That's it. It's just observation. So let's think about that idea that the clocks were striking 13. Okay, so 13 is considered by many cultures to be an unlucky number, which is why we have no floor 13 in most hotels. So 13, we have an unlucky number. We also have one number above, 12, of course, which means that we are probably on military time. So already we have this slightly unsettling feeling that the clocks are striking 13, that unlucky number, and that means that we're probably on military time for some reason. And the question becomes, what is that reason? Has the military, is this a militaristic society? Or what? So it's a bright, cold day in April. Everything seems fine, but then there's that turn, that twist. And we got all of that just from thinking the clocks are striking 13. Interesting. So you have something to work with now. If you go on to the second sentence, which brings you to the end of the first baby paragraph there, it says this: Winston Smith, his chin nuzzled into his breast in an effort to escape the vile wind, slipped quickly through the glass doors of Victory Mansions, though not quickly enough to prevent a swirl of gritty dust from entering along with him. Okay, so you, as the literary analyst, will start picking out some of those details, like the name of the protagonist, Winston Smith, for instance. Smith is a really common last name. Maybe there's something to that. Maybe anytime you have a character whose name ends with Smith or begins with some form of John, chances are, if it's, great literature, that you're looking at an everyman kind of character. And Winston Smith is set up anyway to potentially be that kind of character. The name Winston is also interesting. This book was written in 1950. And so that was within very recent memory of World War II. Stalin was still in charge. This book, of course, is going against Stalinist ideas. Winston would bring to many people's mind Winston Churchill. If you see right here, I have a Winston Churchill bag. He's a fascinating guy. So there's this sense that we have an everyman, but with the potential for some kind of greatness, perhaps. But it says his chin nuzzled into his breast in an effort to escape the vile wind, slipped quickly through the glass doors of Victory Mansions. Maybe Victory Mansions stood out to you the first time you read this or that I read it to you. We have Victory Mansions, but vile wind taking gritty dust comes in with Winston. So something's, again, not quite matching up. Something's called Victory Mansions, but it sounds not so nice. All this gritty dust is swirling in behind Winston. So all of these things, these first two sentences set up this unsettled, militaristic, things appear to be one way but actually are another tone, as well as something about the protagonist, Winston Smith. Just by his name alone, we at least can have the hypothesis that he might be an everyman character with the potential for greatness. Of course, all these things we need to see how they would play out in the book as a whole. You can't just look at the beginning and go to your test and say, yeah, I'm set to go. You do need to see if those things pan out.
Girls, you saw how did she analyze from just the paragraph, the protagonist, the military systematic and everything from just 4 lines? From when she said the clock strikes 13 because 12, 13, 14 means in military only. It is a great novel. I recommend it. I highly recommend it too for you. Okay? You left. You slept. Okay, guys. Bye. See you on Sunday. Okay.
Bye.
Have a nice weekend.
Bye, miss.
Bye, guys.